Hello, happy Friday. Thanks for joining us for another edition or episode here of our Nebraska Ed Leadership Live show. It's been a lot of fun. We're in week 3, episode 3 of this entire series. And so I'm really grateful, as always, to our NDEC team. And so we'll get shout outs here to start with Ryan Rickabaugh and Jeff Gilbertson. And Julie Downing, who have just been great collaborators and thought partners with this work and have scripted some questions for us to ask our guests each and every week. And this week, we're excited to feature Jamie Cook, who is the literacy officer at NDE. And so Jamie is someone I've also had the opportunity to get to know a little bit through this role that she is in. And so excited to feature her as one of our leaders today. So we're going to jump right in from the start and just say, NDEC team, Ryan, why did we invite Jamie on the show today?
Well, she's fairly new to the job. I think, what are you, 7 months in? Is that right?
Yeah, just about.
We thought we'd catch her early and try to pick her brain a little bit on her experience. But no, Jamie's new to the NDE. She came to us from LPS as a former principal. And I did a little background research. I know Jamie fairly well, but wanted to get some thoughts from people that she'd worked with before, just to get an idea of maybe what separated her and what stood out about her leadership. And what I found is that people describe her as a leader who will get in the mud with you. That was one thing that came up. And she's not somebody who kind of leads from the sidewalk. Very approachable, very objective, holds a deep belief that every student, every adult can grow. When things get hard, Jamie is known to be the person who is thinking 2 steps ahead while staying right beside the team. So a lot of those leadership characteristics obviously stood out from people that you've worked with, Jamie. When you hear people describe you that way, what part feels most like you? And where would you say that part of your leadership really came from?
Well, first of all, wow, fills my heart, makes me a little emotional hearing those comments. Very appreciative and grateful for that. I have always been one, I feel like I had really great leaders in my past that led right along with us. As a new teacher teaching kindergarten and just trying to figure out what I was doing and how to do it, I had really amazing leaders in my corner that were in my classroom providing me coaching and support. So that has always been really, really important to me. I feel very strongly that our role as educators and as leaders cannot be an isolated effort, that it has to be collaborative. It has to have a form of collective efficacy. Like we have to do and be willing to do this job together. And so that has always been a part of who I am as a teacher, who I was as a teacher, and who I am as a leader. I value collaboration and partnerships. I have always said I would never ask a teacher or another leader to do something that I wouldn't do. And I think that's really how you grow relationships. That's how you encourage shared responsibility. That's how you improve, is by walking alongside the people that are doing the job and show appreciation. I try to be very humble in my leadership and know that I can't do it alone and I need people alongside of me. And so I want to give that back to whoever I'm serving, whether that's teachers, whether that's others in this role, that I'm willing to do the work alongside of them.
Well, I absolutely love that because it aligns with our show's intent really here. And, I've kind of said it every week, but we've even written this down. We put it in the video to start that we're here really to create a space for Nebraska's leaders to be able to connect, share, grow together. Like you said, that it's something that the folks before you kind of impart to you and through you and that you then cultivate over time. And speaking of leaders from across the state kind of connecting in, thanks, Dr. Polk, for the comment on Facebook. And this will be a quick reminder that anyone tuning in here live is able to bring in comments or questions for Jamie. But that was a great way for us to start. What's that, Jamie?
I said thanks. That's awesome. That's sweet.
Appreciate Dr. Polk checking things out here today. And so, Ryan, sorry to interrupt there. But I thought it'd be good to kind of bring that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And, Jamie, one thing that came through just in conversations that I had, and you had talked a little bit about it, you've led in ways that has built trust and belief, in your building as a principal. How do you, when you think about that, and you talked about the impact you have on people and trying to create that, what do you think that does for people within the system that really feel like they trust their leader, that they're building something together? What have you experienced in the outcome or the influence of that on the system itself, whether it's in school or even here at the State Department?
Yeah. So my first year of principal, I was in a position where we needed to make some pretty significant changes in the building I was serving in. And I don't know that I knew the realities of all of that until I stepped foot, which that's with anything, right? And so building relationships and doing the hard work together was very much a theme of how we were choosing to work with our staff as leaders. And so I hope that through that commitment, through the opportunity to coach and build credibility, that I inspired people to be the best versions of themselves. And I think that's something that I hoped for in that situation, and something I hope to do in my current situation. Moving from having a perspective of a building versus a state perspective is something I'm still trying to figure out. And the impact and the reach from a state standpoint in this current position is very different. But what I hope is that the work that I get to do with colleagues here and with educators and leaders in the space across the state is helping people become better versions of themselves. I am a huge proponent for continuous learning. I think with education and the landscape and how it changes oftentimes so quickly, that you have to be willing to learn. And in my role as a leader, I think that's even more important, that you're learning and growing as new research or new strategies or new leadership expectations evolve, that you're doing that with those that you serve with so that you can make everybody better. And I think that we're always looking to do that. We owe it to our students in our classrooms to be the best version of ourselves every single day. And we're also human. And so maybe, one day we were a little bit off, but we get back up, we pick ourselves up, and we keep doing the work. And that's what I try to exude in my leadership of, I'm going to go alongside, I'm going to get in the mud with you. It's going to be messy, but we're going to do it together. And we're doing it in service of kids and the communities that we represent.
That's great. That's great. What, just thinking about, the impact you had as a principal, talk to us a little bit about what energized you about the opportunity to transition to the Department of Education. And then what do you miss the most about leaving a building, and maybe what has been the greatest reward in making that transition?
Yeah, that's a great question. I absolutely loved my experience as a principal, and I had the opportunity to serve in both a title building as a principal and a non-title building. And both of those experiences helped me become a more well-rounded leader. At least I felt that way. And so it was a hard decision to even consider leaving being a principal and the day-to-day in a school. I was an elementary principal, and so in elementary, you get hugs every day and you're told you're beautiful and amazing. And so it's hard to give that up. I don't quite get that same reaction when I come into work here, but that's okay. But I think what most inspired me about this particular position is that literacy is an area of passion of mine. It always has been. And I feel really strong that there's an opportunity that I could fit into that can be on the cusp of something really, really exciting when we think about statewide literacy impact, and being a part of that journey and do the work with others, not just in the building that I'm serving or the district I was serving, but across the state, and getting to see really amazing teachers and leaders across the state and help them refine literacy practices and efforts was really, really exciting to me. To just be able to hone in on that and work together to improve outcomes across our state. I do miss the littles. What fills my heart is going into a school and seeing teacher collaboration, walking through the classroom and hearing little voices and seeing learning just transform in a classroom. And so I've tried to be intentional in that, and trying to kindly invite myself out to other buildings. I was just recently in Beatrice and had an opportunity to see their elementary school. And so it's moments like that fill my heart. Plus, you get to really see the amazing literacy work that's happening firsthand. So I miss that, but I try to be really intentional and purposeful and still making space for those opportunities. And also, I think it's really good that, at least I hope, that our educators and leaders see that I want to come out and I want to celebrate what's happening in your building. I think so much time is spent on focusing on the negative and what's not going well, that it's a great opportunity to shift that and say, we actually have some really amazing things happening specific to literacy in our buildings across the state. And if I can play a little part in elevating that and highlighting that, that's important to me as well. So try to make it all fit and try to make it all work.
You know, and feel free to jump in, anybody, if you have questions or anything you wanna ask Jamie. Working with principals across the state, one thing that I've heard often, and I know the C team we've heard often, is with the literacy work, and sometimes, especially with upper level, whether it's middle school, maybe high school principals, might not have that reading background, right? Or that science of reading, that understanding. And the tools and the support that's been provided has just allowed them to build some confidence in feeling like they can be an instructional leader around literacy. And as you know, that confidence and efficacy is so important. And that's kind of a theme we hear of principals just gaining an understanding, seeing how it works, and being confident in leading some of that work within their building. So you need to be aware of that. So things are moving in the right direction with literacy. And so I'll let you guys jump in. I don't want to keep taking all the time. Feel free to jump in, guys.
I'll queue up Jeff then. I would give him the opportunity to ask next.
Well, thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Jamie, for being with us today. Quick question, you kind of alluded to it, but what do you see are the biggest challenges for young readers in regard to the gaps that exist across the state? What challenges do you see?
That's a really great question. I think challenges that I see mainly is just thinking about the instructional coherence of that in our schools, and how we are in some cases inadvertently providing incoherence in instruction, and thinking specifically about phonemic awareness and those early literacy skills. We really need the instructional day to be very coherent. And sometimes, with all good intentions, we have a core material in our classrooms, and we might have a student that is needing some interventions, and so they're receiving some support, but it's significantly different, or it's not directly connected to what they just experienced in their core environment. And so that then creates lots of variability, and that creates incoherence, and students struggle to make connections. And when we think about how our brain learns, we need connections, and we need regular opportunities to practice, provide feedback, practice some more, provide more feedback around our skills. And so when that doesn't happen, that creates some significant gaps. I also would love to see, and I think both a blessing and a curse has been technology in our spaces. And there's a time and a place for reading on a tablet or on a screen, or having that as an experience. But we also want to be mindful about ensuring that our students are actively engaged with text. And I think we're seeing that more coming back into our classrooms, where text really is the center of that instructional experience for students. So I think those little things, but I think they're little. And what's great is the work that we're doing right now across the state is really focused on instructional coherence, whether that's with CLSD or within the Nebraska Literacy Project. And again, I don't think there's any ill intention, right? When we have educators in our classrooms and students might be struggling with reading in specific, we want to help. And so we naturally are trying to find everything that we can to support a student. So it comes from a place of wanting to provide the best experience. It just inadvertently has created some fragmented learning experiences for students, and then gaps continue to exist. So I think it's a great opportunity that we have to sort of pause and reevaluate that student experience and think about how we can be more coherent in that. Another great thing that CLSD is doing is really focusing on the family literacy aspect. And I think the more that we can support our families in what literacy can look like at home, and it's not direct instruction, but it's just conversation. It's pointing out and using vocabulary in the classroom, whether through books or just through natural conversations. And I'm really, really excited about the work that's happening specifically in that space, because our families are now getting tools, and they're getting books, and they're getting handouts about how to incorporate small literacy tidbits, if you will, into the home. And they are so excited and are wanting more. And so that gets me really excited, because I think that's another area that if we can support closing our gap and supporting our families, that's also going to help us too when we think about improving literacy.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks.
What I love about you, Jamie, is you're so what resonates and is so relatable is this collective consciousness that you have and you want us to have as a state about literacy. And you do that through, you're just very humble, you're appreciative, you have a lot of gratitude, you're really a servant leader. And so I'm wondering, I have a friend who's a teacher, and she says the best leadership thing I can do in my classroom is create the weather that I want. And what she means by that is she's creating the environment and the conditions for people to thrive. And when our teachers thrive, our kids thrive, right? So my question is really, how do you create the weather for progress from the chair that you sit in now with all the experiences you've had in buildings?
That's a great question. I think I think by doing that is just being an active listener. Like we can't create conditions, we can't create the weather if we don't really know what's happening and what the reality is. And I think, as I mentioned, that sometimes what is seen is not the positive, and we have to acknowledge what's not working and we move forward, but we also have to acknowledge what is working. And what I've tried to do in this role is just do a lot of listening, especially over the last 7 months, is what is the field feeling? What is the literacy landscape across the state? And that looks different. And honoring the work that's happening, but then thinking about, okay, from that, we need coherence. We need more systematic literacy instruction. We need more systems in some of our spaces. And so that then makes me think, what can I do? What's in my realm of control where I can support in that area, whether it's creating resources, whether it's creating professional learning. One shift that we have felt is looking at our 792607, a revised state statute that says educators of children age 4 through grade 3 be adequately trained, and there's no exemption in that. And so our interpretation is all. Now that I've received lots of really honest and appreciative feedback of what does that look like for all. And so hearing that and listening, we're moving forward, and we've got a subcommittee that's going to revise our rubric that will be more appropriate for other groups of teachers. I keep hearing, can we have some, professional learning that we can utilize in our districts? We've got great partnerships with our ESUs, but just something else too that we can push out. So we're working to develop some resources around that. So I try to be really intentional of what is needed, and listening to the field, and then thinking, okay, from my lens, what can I do to reduce variability, to reduce the stress and anxiety that our leaders and our teachers might be feeling with mandates that are honestly unfunded at sometimes, that how do we make this work that pair with what they're already doing? And so I see that as part of my role, is trying to take a little bit of stress off of the system and provide adequate and evidence-based resources and supports so that they feel confident and have what they need to be their best. I think about reducing cognitive load, right? We try to do that for students. I'm trying to do that here. I think that's a really important aspect that we think about, of how can we reduce the cognitive load on our leaders and our teachers. And I see the Office of Literacy playing a role in that. So what I'm trying to do.
Gosh, Jamie, listening to your response there, you start to think a little bit of, and I don't mean to put this on you necessarily, but like the weight of the responsibility, right? That is like saying, you know what, we're gonna do this. We're gonna do this statewide. We're gonna do this together, and being able to work through the challenges maybe, or kind of the messy that is listening and sifting and moving in the direction that you need to go. Can be a challenge sometimes, but I also love too what you shared earlier regarding, but when you're out in the classroom, there's such energy there. When you find yourself in a conversation with, the SEED team, you're like, these are the people leading the teacher and principal performance standards in Nebraska. Like, this is awesome to be around these folks and to learn and be inspired by that. And I think when, personally, at least when I left the district level and had a broader exposure to the great work that's going on statewide, it was just, inspiring to be invested in all that. So I use that as almost really a setup for a question that came in from our audience. It is Dr. Polk Sharon here. She asks, with so many great things happening in schools already, how can we share their work to others across the state? So in the same way that I felt inspired by seeing these great things that are out there, and I've heard that in your responses, what does it look like then to try to elevate that in a way that kind of feeds everything?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've started small with that. So we've started within our CLSD grantees, and we hold weekly CLSD webinars. And so this semester has really been focused on elevating some of those really great things that are happening. We've had ESUs, we've had districts share and present what is working and where are they seeing really great improvement and change, and how did that change come to be? It's one thing to say we implemented X and got Y, but what about all of the messy in between X and Y? How did we navigate that? What might lessons lead to next time or other grantees experience? And so we're starting there. My vision is, how can we grow this across the state and be more intentional in utilizing and accessing social media to highlight some of these really amazing works that's happening, to bring people into the spaces. As we start to think about admin days, what does that look like to bring in districts or ESUs or other organizations that might be connected to our CLSD work to share what's happening and the difference that it's making? So I think we just have to be more intentional about lifting that up and finding platforms where our districts and our ESUs and our amazing leaders can brag on themselves a little bit. And we've tried to do that in little ways, with our board presentation in January, highlighting those CLSD glimmers. As we went and have spoke to other organizations around the state, we've tried to incorporate and highlight some of those. So that there's an opportunity for us to continue to deepen that, but that for sure is a vision that I have. I feel like I've really, as I mentioned, spent this year of just trying to listen and learn. And so I'm really excited for what I call year 2. You're not really in a school year anymore, but it's sort of in my brain, it's still a school year. And there's some really great ideas and great visioning that's happening that I think can just go deeper into our literacy journey across the state, and us being able to tell our own story. Like, I think that's at the end of the day. We want to be able to tell our own story, not have other people tell the story for us. So we got to be in control of that.
Well, thanks for joining us on this platform to do that. And we hope in some small way that we're able through this avenue to lean into the very thing you're talking about there, Jamie. And thank you too for, as Dr. Polk has there, the aims that you alluded to earlier are intended to take that cognitive load off of our educators, as you said, and what great work to be invested in with that also. And so, gosh, half hour goes pretty quick. So we're kind of like working towards a little bit of a close here. And I have a question that I got a chance to ask week 1. We did not, I don't think, address this last week. And so I'm going to bring this back up as kind of our closing question. I'm curious to get your feedback on, I guess, or to hear your answer. What's a lesson that you've learned from a leader who preceded you that you feel like you kind of point to, or that speaks to you in those moments, often maybe as you're in this new role, especially?
Yeah, I love that question because the leader that comes to mind is Mona Manley. And Mona Manley was a principal when I was teaching. And she was the person that sort of tapped me on the shoulder because my personality is more of a quiet internalizer. I do a lot of reflective thinking, and I didn't have leaders that had a similar personality. So I didn't really see myself in a leadership role in beginning because it was like, well, that's not my personality. But Mona for sure saw something that tapped me, and that really set this whole leadership trajectory for me. So I'm appreciative of that. But the lesson that she said to me was, don't try to be someone that you're not. Always be true to yourself and who you are. Because we had lots of conversations of, my personality is just not the same. Like, get me in a room with educators and talk about education, and I can be an extrovert, right? Otherwise, I love my introverted self. So she always said, but you got to where you are because of who you are, not because of someone you tried to be. And so stay true to that and stay true to your values. And I think that's something that I hold really, really true. For me, the work that I do sparks a passion. It's a fire that lights inside of me. And I need that. I would not be the person I am to just show up at a job, 9 to 5 and go home. It has to matter. And so that's something that I hold true, and I try to take with me throughout my journey and be a part of who I am as a colleague and as a leader, is always just be myself, be me, and that's okay. We can be good.
It's more than okay, Jamie. You've done a great job in the role that you're in, and obviously throughout the duration of your career, as Ryan alluded to from the top. And we're so grateful to connect with you today through this effort. And like you said, the work matters. It matters a lot. And that fire that you bring to it is contagious too. So thanks for channeling that through your introversion, perhaps. Talking about, because it has been a real joy to get to work with you and talk about this work on a number of times. So, C team, anything to close us out on?
No, thanks, Jamie. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for the opportunity. I loved it.
Yeah, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to everybody that joined us live. We'll be back in 2 weeks' time, and so we'll look forward to seeing everybody back here then. So until then, stay warm, enjoy the rest of your Friday, and have a great weekend.